welcome back. For those of you that are here for the first time, welcome. And I hope you enjoy this video, but most of all, for everyone, thank you so much for stopping by. And let's grab some supplies and let's create together. My name is Desiree, and this is video number 3 of the first series for the Christmas series that I do every year. So I have it a little bit different. I've been announcing all the changes. Remember what I want you to focus on, the techniques that we are using in each of these videos. This series here is focusing on ornaments and tags. In this video, I'm going to show both ornaments and tags, but using larger size stamps. And yes, you can see I've created my own stamp line. If you missed the premiere, I'll have it linked down below. These stamps are still available, but these are large. These are set on 6x6 stamp sets, and you can see the image takes up a lot of the real estate when it comes to the stamp set size. I'm going to show you how you can get them on smaller tags, still get a beautiful tag, and also create an ornament. Now I will be using the Hero Arts Infinity dies. This has been out for a while. I keep this very close to me around the holidays. I just love the shapes of the ornaments, and I'm going to use this to die cut my images once we have them done. Not only in this video am I going to show you how you can take a large image and put it on something smaller to make it look beautiful, but I'm also going to show you all kinds of different techniques to add color, to make these come to life, whether that's just simple graphite, which is a number 2 pencil, or white chalk, or adding inks to them and blending them out and then making them look like watercolor. So lots of techniques are going on in this. I encourage you, dig into your stash, find that large stamp that you just had to have, but now you're just not sure what to do with them. The other reason why that I am showing this too is in the premiere, I did show what these look like. Now I don't have the tags, but these are ornaments that I had shown, and people were curious how these were created. So this is what we're going to show today. All right, so grab your supplies, and remember, just a side note, long video, voiceover through this, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to talk through the items that we made, just to talk about the techniques used and how we came about. Remember, the products that I used will be listed down below only if you want to check them out, and if you're interested in them. If they're not available, I'll let you know that. But again, dig into that stash. So grab your supplies and let's get started. What I'm going to do first, and you're going to basically see this in every video, that it's kind of production style, especially when coming from ornaments and tags. I don't want to do just one. I want to have a bunch of them available for me, for gifts, for for tops of presents, for my tree. So everything that I'm doing, I kind of do in a certain order. So here I'm starting with the sentiments. Let's get some sentiments embossed. I'm doing that onto vellum paper, vellum cardstock, and I'm just choosing some of the Christmas, or I'm just using the Christmas sentiments. Now they all sit within the Christmas ornament that I designed. All the other 3 stamps that I designed have a mixture of celebration, birthday, sympathy, you know, memories and stuff like that. So I'm just pulling those out. I'm using the scraps of vellum that I have. Again, I'm digging into, you know, my stash when it comes to my cardstock and everything else. And I'm just going to town embossing some sentiments, whether that's in excuse me, silver embossing powder, gold embossing powder, champagne embossing powder, whatever that is. But I want to get those done and get those out of my way. They can be duplicate sentiments as well. I don't know what's going to go with what. So we're just going to continue through and get those finished. Now that we have those done, we're going to work on the tags first. So we're going to make 3 of them. Remember, these are large images. They're definitely not going to fit on this tag. Now, this tag, I believe, is a 3 by 5. It looks like, or a 3 by 5.5. So it's large. The images that I'm going to use, we don't have to use a Christmas or holiday image. You can use any background or a stamp that has a background for your tags. I love the look, or monochrome look as well. Craft black, yep, that just does it for me. And especially white on craft, that especially does it for me. Now, the craft cardstock that I absolutely love, it is my favorite. It is by Recollections, because it looks like a paper bag craft. And I think it's just absolutely phenomenal. So this is the 110 pound. I've stamped it with white pigment ink because I'm going to use white embossing powder on top of that to get that image. I'm going to use the bloom, the wave, and I believe the mandala. I am using my sticky mat inside of my stamp positioning tool. And here I'm just playing around with where do I want to position this stamped image. Again, the whole thing is not going to fit there, but a portion of it will. And it'll just give that illusion of a design on the tag. And that's what you're looking for, to have that texture in the background. So don't think, oh, it's got to be a holiday image. It's got to be this. Not necessarily. It's a tag. And it can give the illusion by adding embossing powders, whether they're metallic or the white, or the gems. You're giving it that sparkle and shine that comes with the holidays. And that's how I look at that type of thing that I'm looking for. The last one that we're going to set in here is what's called the wave. And because I'm going to move the tag to the other side to have this positioned in another way. And again, I'm just looking for that corner to come across. Hopefully I remember how I put my tag. And again, we're going to come in with the white. Now, I always try, I mean, I'm horrible remembering to use my anti-static powder tool, but I always try to remember, especially if I'm using a white embossing powder, because for me, I just feel it has the most static. When it comes to the metallics and everything else, it's usually fine, but with white, whew, it just goes all over the place, and sticks. So once we have this last one stamped, we're going to heat set that, and we're just going to use one color. Now, you can choose anything that you want. I think they look great just the way they are right now. Excuse me. But you can add any type of color that you would want for your images. All right, so we're just going to get cleaned up here a little bit. And here are our tags. Just going to wipe off the excess powder. And what I'm going to be using is a white chalk pencil. I think they're quicker to blend. Now, this one here is by Arteza. The only thing I like it, I think it's a good white chalk, but it is very, I don't know the word I want to use. I don't, you know, I want to say flaky, but I don't want, flaky's not the real. All of it does not go into the paper like it should. But it's a good starter to get used to a chalk pencil. You can certainly use a white colored pencil as well. Chalks, you can see, just move quicker. To remove the excess dust from your chalk, when using this, there's a little tiny plastic bin that's always off to the side of me. And what I will do is I will take that and tap that in there, or use a very big fluffy brush, because I don't want to smear it across. I do not suggest, nor do I recommend blowing it off of your cardstock, because you could breathe in and you could breathe that dust in. It took me a long time to not do that, and to learn that. But I'm sure, you know, breathing in the chalk is not good for you. So don't do that. Just tap it. And it will come off. And it does come off. It's not like you still see that there. It does come off just fine. And that's what I'm doing. When you see me pull it up, I'm actually tapping it into my bin there. And now I'm just going to go around the outside. And then I'm using a blending stump. You see these, you've seen many use them with colored pencils and Gamsol. That's what I'm using there to just blend out those chalks. Now these I'm making double layers, so I have the same size cut. I'm going to bring in my scoreboard and my stylus, and I'm going to score right where the tag goes in. And I'm going to add glue to the top of that tag. I am going to fold on the score line, add my glue above that, and then line that up with the tag that we have our image on. And of course, you want to make sure that it's lined up. Then we are good to go then. And those are those three tags. That's how they were created. So now we're going to get set up to make our ornaments. Now we're going to create our backgrounds just like we did in our previous video for our snowflake tags. And I'm going to do a red background. And I think that was it, just the red one. But we're going to pull in lumberjack plaid, kitsch flamingo. You know, we've got some really bright different colors there. And of course, there's that white again. I love that white. Again, I'm using Bristol vellum. I'm wetting down that cardstock first and then coming in with these colors. I like to move as quick as I can because you can see that paper is just starting to curl. She is just starting to move. I'm adding more water. I want to keep the dark color to the bottom and I want to have that light color to the top. So just, you know, I'm trying not to be inky. That's hysterical. And now we're just going to take it to the heat tool so that it can stop. But you can see that white just bleed right through the colors, and it just really adds a lot to the panel when it comes to this. I'm going to come in with a cloth just to dab away some of the excess color, and we're going to set that aside. For our next one, we're going to choose just a little bit different color palette. We're going to go, I'm sorry, not a different color palette. My favorite color palette, again, that's Uncharted Mariner and the Speckled Egg. And we're going to pull in that white again, making sure that the dark stays at the bottom because that's what's going to give you a variegated look. Now, you can keep adding color if you want, you know, whatever it is you're looking to do. I love the way that the white kind of holds back some of the colors and makes it look like it's snowing. Or like there's a blizzard going on there. So, you know me, I'm all about the blizzard. So those are the two panels that we have, and we're going to make sure that they are nice and dry. And now we're going to pull in some of our inks. When we stamp our image, we're going to also create some variations and add water to them when the inks are reactive. So for this one here, we're going to pull in the ornament stamp, A Tangled Christmas. And I want the bottom of the ornament to be in the dark and the top of it going into the lighter. I am going to use my anti-static powder tool heavily because I know that there is still probably some dampness in this cardstock. I'm going to use my clear ink and I'm going to stamp this multiple times because I want to make sure that I have a good impression of this image. I'm going to use champagne embossing powder or platinum, and we're going to heat set that image. And you can see the spots that are still wet. So I'm going to come in with a dry brush and just brush those areas away from the image. So even when it feels dry, your paper could still be damp within the fibers, and the embossing powder will absolutely adhere to it. So we're setting that aside. We're going to clean up the stamp and we're going to get ready for the next one. The next one that's going to come up is the wave, I believe. I'm trying to remember all the things that I did here. And for the wave, I'm using a piece of just plain Bristol vellum cardstock. I do like the vellum. Look, I really don't see a difference between the smooth or the vellum. I really don't. What I do see a difference is the vellum does have a smooth side and a little bit of a textured side. There's the difference that I see. But I do like that texture. So for the wave, sorry, rambled there for a second, I am going to stamp that using my VersaFine black ink. Because again, when I designed these stamps, they are Zentangle inspired. And again, we use black ink. I'm a like I said, I'm a certified Zentangle teacher, and we use black ink on that paper. So to keep that true, you know, I always want to do that. For the next one, I pulled in the bloom again, and we're going to go along that dark and light using the VersaFine black again. And it just stands out against that deep red. I love that lumberjack red. It is a true red. For me, it's a true red. The next ones that we're going to do is, I believe, yes, here's another piece of vellum. And I also like to use vellum too because it gives me the option. Am I going to add water? Am I going to add watercolors? Am I going to add colored pencils? Am I going to add this? And I can use this paper for all of those, which I think is great. Here I'm going to pull in some dye inks. Now these are water reactive inks, so you can use distress inks, you can use, if you have the Catherine Puller inks, I have the Simon Said Positively. So any inks that are water reactive, this will work. So I'm taking a darker shade, I'm putting that in the center, and then I am going to use one of my brushes to kind of soften it out just a little bit, but I'm not too worried if it's not crazy soft because we're going to do something on top of this. We're not just going to stop here. So around the outside, I'm using a lighter color. On the inside, I'm coming in with a darker color and just using the corner of the ink pad. I'm okay to set that aside. Because with what we do, it will still react to that. Because again, they are water reactive. So whatever inks that you have, if they do that, this will absolutely work perfectly. And you can see, I'm still working in that production style. I did all the sentiments first. I did the backgrounds next. Now I'm doing all of the stamping next. Getting that set up. Then we're going to move on to the next step. So everything when it comes to ornaments and tags, even if I'm making a bunch of cards, it's in a production style sense, which I feel really helps to get the best bang for your buck when it comes to creating for the holidays. A lot of us try to think ahead and get a jump start on it. I am not one of those people. I am a procrastinator. I wait until the last minute. So I guess this is why I'm always working this way in a production style, because I'm looking to get more done in a short amount of time. All right, so we have, and I also did that with the bloom that you saw as I was gabbing, but I did it in 2 shades of green. So here are all of our panels, and I'm going to focus on these 2 here. I have a clean jar of water, and I have a nice size brush, and I'm just going to go to town over these. I'm just pulling out those inks, letting them react with the water that's on my brush. Now I don't have a lot of water, So once I go into my jar, I am taking some of that water off. I don't want puddles. Not looking for those puddles, but just drawing out that color and letting it blend. And you can tell when I do have a lot of water that card is buckling. Well, that's telling me, okay, get more water out. Don't add so much. For the center of the mandala, I want to add a gem. So I'm using my the two dark colors of inks that I use, the dark green and the dark, I'm going to say, grayish blue. And I'm mixing those together and just letting them do their thing in the center to create that gem. And here I'm doing the same thing. I'm just brushing over the stamped areas and letting that ink react with the water from my brush. So you're taking a stamped image and now making it look like it's watercolored. I love doing this. I think it is a great technique, and it's a lot of fun because you can see you're just going over it. You're not doing anything specific. But again, just make sure you don't have a lot of water in your brush. You want to make sure that you're removing some of that water. And I had a lot of water on that second bloom, so it's really curled the paper. But that's okay. It's still going to work. We're still going to be fine. For this one, I'm just adding graphite. A pencil, a number 2 pencil will work just fine with this. And you just need that blending stump again. I'm just adding it to the bases of these blooms and inside those arches and where these lines, these vines come together. And then I'm just going to come through with the blending stump to just blend that out. Again, you can see how fast I'm moving. It's not perfect, but just softening that graphite or pencil that we've put down onto our image. And you can see it just makes it, gives it that 3D look, gives them life, which I absolutely love. I'm not going to do anything to the red panel or the blue panel. We are going to let them be for right now. What we are going to do is we are going to add our splatters. This time I'm going to make sure that I use my splatter box. In the previous video I just splattered all over my table. I'm still finding splatter marks all over the place. It's awesome. So just adding those. Now you'll see that these were not completely dry. So the splatters are not as bright white as what I would want them. But again, they still look gorgeous. They still look beautiful. And they did pull some of the colors through. I actually do love the splatters on the mandala one, the blue. It just looks really cool. And you can see how the splatters just, you know, they're not as bright white on that red. They kind of pick that up. But again, still beautiful. Now I'm just cutting down the sentiments using my scissors, not worried about if the lines are straight, just going across and creating that length. I'm looking for that length. Now, for these are the ornaments. And I'm going to be using a die for these. You can cut your own shapes. You can just use circles. If you only have circle dies in your stash, or rectangles or diamonds, they will still look just as wonderful. I've always loved this set's been out for a while with Hero Arts, and I just love the shapes that they have. So I'm using my mini die cutter from Honeybee. Absolutely love that. It's a nice size and can take a nice size die, which I think is great. And just getting the toppers ready for some of my ornaments once we have them together. Now, when it comes to the ornaments, I do like them to be substantial, meaning I will die cut. So once I choose the shape that I'm die cutting from the panels, I will then die from heavyweight cardstock or continue with the vellum multiples for the background or for the backing. And then that just makes it a little more sturdier. Again, we want our ornaments to last for our tree. And if I just put that extra weight, that extra layer to the back, they will certainly last a very long time. I'm just hitting these with my heat tool just to make sure that the white's dry when I run it through my die cut. And what I do is when I do run these through, just in case they're not completely dry, I put a piece of copy paper on top in case, you know, any of that color transfers onto the plate, because I saw it on this one that the white was not fully dry, because I do get some on my black cardstock here, which again is fine. But from here on out, I start using that piece of copy paper just to protect, you know, those plates. You can see my plates are very well loved when it comes to my die cutting. And here's that excuse me, piece of copy paper going on top. And and again, it's a thin piece of copy paper, so it's just adds a little bit more pressure, but not much at all. So just placing the dies in different areas to get the illusion of the image on there, keeping some white space as well, some open space, to look at how that image is going to look onto it. Here I'm turning this in different ways to get that image through. So those large images that we have, those large background stamps or anything like that, can give us great results when making tags or ornaments. So pull those out. Just because they're not holiday doesn't mean that they cannot be used. We can make them holiday by adding gems and drops and sequins and glitters and embossing powders to give us that shimmer and shine for our images. And even though I couldn't get a full top on this ornament here, the topper's going to cover it. So it's all good when it comes to this. From this panel here, I'm able to get different areas. When we use the whole image, when we stamp, we can get multiple ornaments, multiple sizes from them, and each one will be unique and different. So, you know, turn those dies, use those different dies, and see how that image will look as we change it by just turning it. And again, it does not have to be Christmas, and it can be the largest stamp that you have. Just using a section of it can give us that image onto our ornaments, and they look great. I like taking a stamp and only partially stamping it or only partially having it on something. It gives it new life and a different way to use it. So here I'm going to put our ornaments together by using the heavyweight cardstock with the vellum, so giving it more strength and backing so that it'll be thicker, giving it that double weight when it comes to our ornaments as they're hanging on the tree. As we store them, they'll be able to last longer. For some of them, we're putting our toppers on. And again, I like to put the topper on the front and the back, and just making sure that it's adhered, you know, on the cardstock, because once we put our hanger on there, it'll attach the two top portions of it as well. Now, for the ones that I showed in the beginning, I had to add some gems, I had to add some pearls, and everything else to them, and you'll see that towards the end what I did. Now focusing on getting our sentiments, now that they're all backed, just looking at where those sentiments are going to go and just adding the glue behind where it is stamped. And used vellum for these just because the image can still come through. To separate the sentiment from the ornament, I'm using these very thin strips. These are about 1/8 of an inch on the top and the bottom of the strip of vellum. So you can really see that sentiment come through. Here, I'm just going to add a little bit of the vintage photo around this ornament, and then add our sentiment across on an angle along the top of that. Again, adding some strips, very thin strips along the top and the bottom. You don't need to do that for all of them, but I think it just helps to make that sentiment stand out. It'll draw the eye to it. Once they're dry, I'll cut along the ornament shape. They can go sideways, they can go up and down, they don't have to go straight across. It all depends on how you see that sentiment. And then for our last two, we have the openings between the two areas that we stamped our image. And we're just going to set them down in that opening. So from that one panel where I stamped the bloom twice, we got 2 ornaments from them. And again, that's just because it depends upon the size of the die that you're using. And again, I'm using an ornament die. It does not have to be an ornament die. It could simply be a circle, and then you can back it with a scalloped circle if you have that in your stash. So just look at those frame type dies or nested dies that you have to create these images. So I'm just going to continue to trim these up, and we will see what they finally look like on the other side. Okay, that was a lot. That was a lot, but lots of different techniques going on in here. And again, they can be applied to anything, whether you're making that card or background for a card or whatever it may be. So let's just start with the tags. We've got 3 tags, and in this one I showed you how to make what I call the double decker. All right, again, now these can sit up like we do with a card. You can write your message inside. If you want, you can make a set of these for somebody. But again, you're just cutting the same size, scoring the back of one, and then just gluing it up at the top. So off camera, again, I just added the hole, and I added some black and white twine. I like to leave one of the loops there. And this is where we stamped it in the white pigment ink. We heat emboss it with white embossing powder, fine detail, and then I just came in with some white chalk just to give it a shadow, just to give it that look. Do you have to add the chalk? No. You can add any color you want. This would look pretty with white pigment ink going around this, and you can just have the image in there. So again, lots of choices, and in no time, we've got 3 tags. This was a pretty big image. Just take a section of it. Just look at the section and you can see what you have. If you stamp the whole thing, we can cut it in quarters and then you'll be able to have the different images. For the Tangle in Blooms, we just used a portion of it and had it come down one side, where you can add your sentiment in here if you want, or just keep it all on the inside. For the Tangled Mandala, we used a quarter of it, or a little bit more. Okay, quarter of it would be just like this, but you can certainly do this. Again, stamp it down onto an 8.5 by 11, cut it into quarters, and then either create your card fronts or cut them down into tags. So just because your stamp is large doesn't mean that you can't take a section of it and not really see what that image is. It's going to create a background of some sort. Here are our ornaments that we made. So here we have 2 of our fluxes because we stamped it twice next to each other, and just by the way we were able to position the die, we got 2 ornaments. Now again, off camera, I added my ornament topper and I added some red pearls to these 2. This one and this one, we stamped our image and we added our inks in 2 colors, a very light and a dark. Had the dark in the center, added the light around the outside. Now you could certainly use, I know some people were probably going, she's contaminating her ink pads. It doesn't contaminate your ink pads because it's not like I'm taking the 2 pads and pushing them together here. Yes, some ink does transfer, but I'm okay with that. You could use a sponge dauber, you could use a makeup sponge to get your colors on there. You'll just have to stamp it definitely more than once, probably 4 or 5 times to get a good saturation of ink. Was able to just add my clear water from my brush to that because these are water reactive inks. So you want to make sure that it's that. And all I did was trace the lines, not worried about anything else. So very light amount of water and you get this beautiful watercolor look. Also added some crystal gems to this and added the sentiment going on different angles for each of them. For this one here, we used sprays for our background and we just stamped. Here I just used my VersaFine black, added a few pearls here, one down here, and added the sentiment going across. The snow flurries came in for all of the ornaments. And then this one here, this is that big ornament stamp, but it filled up the whole area of the die. Made sure I had the tangle down here of the floral and then just everything else coming up above it. And you get this beautiful detailed. And then just added just some cardstock strips to the sentiment to help that to stand out a little bit more. And we heat embossed on top of our sprayed background. And this one here, just used the VersaFine black and added the graphite. It's a number 2 pencil. And just shaded in some of these areas and did our sentiment in black and added 2 black strips to that. So have beautiful ornaments to fill our tree or to give as gifts in no time. And again, large image coming down into a smaller size, and you can still have that beautiful background technique. We used our sprays, we used different ways of coloring. So I hope you enjoyed this. This had a lot of different techniques that I want you to apply to your stash. Okay, again, the products that I used, if you're interested, they will be listed down below if you wanted to check them out. If you have any questions, please make sure you leave those down below as well, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. I'd love for you to subscribe. Make sure you hit that thumbs up. By all means, hit that bell notification. Hopefully you'll be notified. Just know videos will be pretty much regular when it comes to this. But most of all, enjoy the art you create. Enjoy the process. As long as you're enjoying the process, You will always have beautiful art and love what you create. Just have fun with it. It's paper. It's all it is. But remember what is most important for me. Always, guys. Always be creative. And I will talk to you in the 4th video of the Ornament and Tag series. Till then.